Laker fans, the wait is almost over. Training camp is right around the corner, and this isn't just another preseason routine. This camp could decide careers. It could separate the ones who belong in the rotation from the ones who'll be left watching from the bench, or worse, shipped off in a trade. For some players, this is a chance to rise. For others, it might be their last shot to prove they deserve a future in purple and gold. Of course, guys like LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Austin Reeves? Their spots are safe. Training camp doesn't change their status one bit. But for several others on this roster, the pressure is real. And that's exactly why this camp is going to be so fascinating. Because beyond the Lakers' big stars, there are players with everything to lose and everything to gain. The Lakers made some moves this offseason that shook up the roster. Bringing in Marcus Smart, a defensive leader who instantly sets the tone. Adding DeAndre Ayton, a talented big man looking to revive his career in Los Angeles. LaRavia was picked up with hopes he could provide shooting and versatility. And then there's rookie Ardwa, a project who still has to show he can translate his game to the NBA level. These names are new. They are hungry. And they'll all be fighting to carve out roles in this rotation. But while those stories matter, the real drama begins with the players who already wore this jersey last year. The guys whose future in the Lakers system isn't guaranteed anymore. And leading that conversation is Dalton Knecht. Last season, Knecht looked like he belonged. He started in 16 games, dropped about 17 points per night, and shot an impressive 39% from deep. He looked like a rising offensive weapon, someone who could swing games with his scoring. But fast forward to today, and his situation has flipped completely. Instead of being a locked-in starter, he's fighting just to stay in the rotation. Right now, he's sitting around the 11th man in the pecking order. Behind Marcus Smart. Behind Gabe Vincent. And behind the trust that Redick wants from his players on both ends of the floor. It's not a question of talent. Dalton might actually be more naturally gifted than some of the guys ahead of him. The issue? Defense. This has always been the knock on Knecht. It's not that he can't defend. He has the athleticism. He's shown flashes here and there. The problem is consistency. Too often, his defensive effort feels optional. He'll lock in on one possession, then drift for the next two. That simply doesn't work on a Lakers team built on effort, rotations, and intensity. Fans see it too. Some still believe he's put in the work this summer, that he's ready to bounce back. But many are openly frustrated, questioning if he'll ever buy in on that side of the ball. Comments like, "When did Knecht ever play defense?" aren't just trolls, they're the reflection of a fan base that demands two-way commitment. And here's the scary part, his entire Lakers future could depend on this camp. If he shows defensive intensity, proves he's willing to sacrifice and grind, he can earn his way back into the mix. But if he slips, if he shows the same bad habits, he risks being left behind. Even worse, he could find himself on the trading block by midseason. Imagine averaging 17 points a game one year, and the next year being packaged in trade rumors. That's the fine line Dalton Knecht is walking right now. But he's not the only one with something to prove. LaRavia is entering camp under his own spotlight. On paper, he's a shooter who can stretch the floor and bring energy. But his summer league performance was, in the words of some fans, diabolical. That means this camp is his redemption chance. If he clicks, he could surprise people and claim a rotation spot. If he struggles again, the Lakers may quickly move on. Then there's DeAndre Ayton. He might not be fighting for a roster spot the way Knecht and LaRavia are, but make no mistake, this camp matters for him too. Ayton's reputation around the league has taken hits in recent years. He's been called inconsistent, too passive, not the dominant force he should be. The Lakers took a chance on him, hoping this change of scenery will unlock the best version of Ayton. Training camp is where he has to show he's bought in, ready to fight for rebounds, defend with energy, and establish himself as the kind of center this team can trust. And let's not forget about the ripple effects. Every decision in camp shifts the rest of the rotation. If Knecht steps up, maybe someone else loses minutes. If LaRavia breaks out, he could force the coaching staff to rethink their wing depth. If Ayton looks shaky, the Lakers may have to explore trade options down the line. This isn't just about individual players, it's about the identity of the entire team. That's why this training camp feels so different. It's not just a tune-up before the season. It's an audition, a test, and for some players, maybe even a final chance. So, Laker fans, get ready. Because while the stars will do what stars always do, the real story is going to come from the battles deeper in the rotation. Who rises? Who falls? And who proves that they deserve to be part of this team's future? Dalton Knecht, Jake LaRavia, DeAndre Ayton. Their names may not be on the marquee like LeBron or AD. But make no mistake, this training camp will define whether they are simply role players in the background, or if they're ready to step into the spotlight and fight for a bigger piece of the Lakers' future. And the countdown begins now. Last season, Dalton Knecht found himself in a unique position. Early on, he had more freedom, more leeway to make mistakes without being punished. Why? Because the Lakers simply didn't have the depth to hold him accountable. Jard Vanderbilt wasn't healthy, Jake LaRavia wasn't in the picture yet, Marcus Smart wasn't signed, and Dorian Finney-Smith hadn't been traded for. The rotation was thinner, the options limited, and that opened the door for Knecht to play a much bigger role than he might have otherwise earned. And to be fair, he delivered offensively. His shot was falling at a high level, he was one of the team's best three-point shooters, and on many nights he looked like an essential scoring option. But there was always one glaring issue, the defense. And because of the team's lack of depth, he wasn't really held accountable for it. Knecht could get away with taking plays off on that end. The Lakers needed his scoring too much to bench him. But once the trade deadline passed and reinforcements arrived, that luxury disappeared. With Finney-Smith in the mix and the rotation shifting around Luka Doncic and others, the defensive concerns finally caught up to him. Suddenly, Knecht wasn't untouchable anymore. He was benched at times, his minutes dropped, and the message was clear: if the defense doesn't improve, his spot in the rotation will vanish. Now, with training camp approaching, this is the ultimate test. Knecht has had months to reflect, study film, and work on his weaknesses. He's had the chance to not only polish his offensive game but also learn team defensive principles, rotations, closeouts, positioning. Physically, he has the tools. He's athletic, he's mobile, and he has the size to guard multiple positions. But none of that matters unless he fully commits. The offense isn't the concern. Everyone, including JJ Redick, knows Knecht can score. Redick even drew up plays specifically for him in his rookie season because of that shooting ability. The question is whether he's willing to embrace defense with the same energy. He can't afford to be a one-possession defender, locked in for one play and checked out for the next two. He has to prove he's ready to commit every single time down the floor. And that starts in training camp. This is where he needs to show intensity on defense early and often. If he comes in locked in, making hustle plays, showing effort, and being physical, he can work his way back into a meaningful role. But if he comes in looking like the same player who faded defensively last season, he risks being permanently relegated to the end of the bench, or worse, becoming expendable in trade talks. This is the defining moment of his young career. But Knecht isn't the only Laker with a lot riding on this training camp. Another player with a lot to gain is Maxi Kleber. Kleber is an interesting case because he didn't play a single regular season game for the Lakers last year. He arrived at the trade deadline along with Doncic, but a broken foot sidelined him until the postseason. His only minutes came in Game 5 against the Timberwolves, a mere 5 minutes in what turned out to be a first-round exit. That was the extent of his Lakers debut. Now, entering this season fully healthy, Kleber is quietly one of the biggest X factors on the roster. Clips from his workouts this summer show him moving well, leaner, and stronger, almost like his own version of a body transformation. Reports around the team suggest the Lakers want to see what they have in him before making any decisions. They don't want to trade him or Gabe Vincent without first evaluating their value in camp. And there's a good reason for that. At 6 feet 10 inches, Kleber brings a skill set the Lakers don't really have in their front court. He's not the rim-running athlete like Jackson Hayes. He's not the post-oriented, traditional big like DeAndre Ayton. Instead, Kleber is a stretch big, someone who can space the floor, hit threes, and give the offense a different look. That's something the Lakers desperately lacked last season. None of their full-time fives could truly space the floor, and Kleber has proven he can. His pathway to rotation minutes is clear: stay healthy, knock down shots, and prove he's still close to the versatile defender and shooter he was during his best years in Dallas. If he does that, he could carve out a meaningful role immediately. There's also a personal connection here that could work in his favor. JJ Redick actually played with Kleber briefly in Dallas during the final season of his NBA career. Redick knows firsthand what Kleber is capable of, the toughness he brings, and the spacing value he provides. That familiarity might buy Kleber an extra look in camp, but ultimately, it's up to Kleber to show he can still perform at that level. So while Dalton Knecht's future hangs on his defensive commitment, Maxi Kleber's shot at breaking into the rotation depends on his health and floor spacing ability. Both players walk into this training camp with something to prove, and both know that if they don't, their roles, and possibly their futures with this team, are in serious jeopardy. Training camp is about battles. And for the Lakers, these two names could define just how deep, versatile, and competitive this roster will be once the season tips off. Training camp is shaping up to be a proving ground for several key players, and the spotlight will be on Dalton Knecht, Maxi Kleber, and LaRavia. For Dalton Knecht, the challenge is crystal clear: defense. Last season, his offensive game made him one of the team's most reliable three-point shooters. But his defensive lapses often went unpunished early on, simply because the roster lacked depth. Once new additions came in and rotations tightened, those issues caught up with him. This time, he has no choice but to show he's committed to improving on that end of the floor. JJ Redick already trusts his offense, but if Knecht wants to secure a consistent role, his defense must take a step forward during camp. Then there's Maxi Kleber. Last year, he barely touched the court due to injury, logging only a few minutes in the playoffs. Now fully healthy, he has a chance to reintroduce himself as a versatile big who can stretch the floor. Unlike the other front-court players on the roster, Kleber brings three-point shooting, spacing, and defensive versatility, skills that could quickly earn him favor with Redick. Their past connection as former teammates adds another layer of intrigue, and if Kleber proves he's still close to his Dallas prime, he'll carve out a valuable role in the rotation. Finally, LaRavia is coming off a career year where he posted new highs in efficiency, rebounding, and defense. Training camp will be about proving last season wasn't a fluke. If he continues to shoot above 35% from three and holds his ground defensively, he could not only earn more minutes but also change the team's trade outlook. Instead of chasing a high-cost 3-and-D wing like Andrew Wiggins, the front office might feel comfortable standing pat, thanks to LaRavia's growth. So between Knecht's defensive test, Kleber's comeback, and LaRavia's chance to solidify himself as a reliable two-way option, all three players have plenty at stake. Training camp won't just decide roles, it could shape trade decisions and the entire direction of the team.